My own mother slapped me at my engagement party for refusing to give my brother the 50 I'd saved for my wedding. But then, you know how they say money changes people. Well, I learned that lesson the hard way when my own mother slapped me at my engagement party. But let me back up a bit. My name's Jessica, and I'm 28, working as an accountant here in Phoenix. Not the most exciting job, sure, but it pays the bills and taught me something valuable: how to save money. For 5 years, I'd been putting away every spare dollar I could find, skipped the fancy coffee shop visits, bought generic groceries, drove my beat-up Honda until it practically begged for mercy. All for one dream: my perfect wedding. $50,000. That's what I had sitting in my savings account by the time Michael proposed. Michael's this sweet guy I met at a bookstore. Can you believe people still meet that way? He's a teacher, makes decent money, but not enough to fund the kind of wedding I'd been dreaming about since I was 12. The thing is, my family never really got my whole saving money thing. My brother David, he's 31 and has never met a dollar he couldn't spend faster than he earned it. Mom always said he was creative and free-spirited. Dad used to roll his eyes at that, but he never said much. David would come up with these wild business ideas: selling homemade protein bars, starting a dog-walking service, importing weird gadgets from overseas. None of them ever worked out, but Mom kept believing in him. Jessica's always been the practical one. Mom would tell people, like it was some kind of personality flaw. She gets that from her father's side. I remember when David bought that ridiculous sports car when he was 25. Couldn't afford the payments, of course, but he looked so good driving it around town for the 3 months before it got repossessed. Mom cried about it for weeks, kept saying how unfair life was to her artistic son. Meanwhile, I was eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch and patching holes in my jeans because every extra penny went into my wedding fund. But nobody seemed to notice that sacrifice. The trouble started about 2 months before my engagement party. David showed up at my apartment on a Tuesday night, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was all messy, not the intentional messy look he usually went for, but actual mess. "Jess, I need to talk to you about something important," he said, pushing past me into my living room. I should have known right then. David only called me Jess when he wanted something. He flopped down on my couch like he owned the place and started this whole sob story about his latest business venture. Apparently, he'd invested everything he had, plus money he'd borrowed from friends, into some cryptocurrency thing. I'm not even sure he understood what cryptocurrency was, but someone had convinced him it was a sure thing. It was supposed to triple my investment in 6 months, he said, running his hands through his hair. But the whole platform crashed. The FBI's involved now. I think it was a scam. Of course it was a scam. I wanted to say that, but David looked genuinely devastated. For all his faults, my brother isn't mean-spirited. He's just stupid with money. "I'm sorry, David, that really sucks," I said, sitting down across from him. "But you'll bounce back. You always do." That's when he hit me with it. "Actually, that's why I'm here. I was hoping maybe you could help me out, just temporarily." I felt my stomach drop. "Help you out how?" "Well, I know you've got that wedding fund, and it's just sitting there in the bank, right? Not earning much interest or anything. If you could lend me maybe half of it, just $25,000, I could pay back my friends and get back on my feet. I'd pay you back with interest before your wedding, I promise." The audacity of it knocked me speechless for a moment. 5 years of sacrifice, and he wanted me to just hand over half of it like it was pocket change. "David, no, absolutely not." His face changed then. The puppy dog expression disappeared, replaced by something harder. "Come on, Jess. Family helps family. It's not like you need all 50,000 for one day. It's not about one day. It's about 5 years of saving. It's about having the wedding I've dreamed of." "Dreams don't matter as much as family," he shot back. That's when I knew Mom had gotten to him. That was her phrase, word for word. The engagement party was supposed to be this beautiful, intimate gathering at my parents' house. Mom had insisted on hosting it, and for once, I thought she was being genuinely supportive. She decorated the backyard with string lights and borrowed fancy plates from her sister. About 30 people showed up. Family, close friends, some of Michael's colleagues. Everything was going perfectly until about an hour in. I was standing by the gift table, talking to my friend Emma about wedding venues, when I heard Mom's voice getting louder near the patio. "She's being incredibly selfish," Mom was saying to my Aunt Carol. "Family should come first, not some overpriced party." My cheeks burned. I knew exactly what she was talking about. David had obviously gone crying to Mom after our conversation, and she'd spent the past 2 weeks calling me daily, trying to guilt me into changing my mind. Each conversation got more dramatic. "Your brother is in real trouble, Jessica. He could lose everything." "He's already lost everything, Mom, that's the point. You have more money than you know what to do with." "I have exactly enough money to do what I've been planning to do with it for 5 years." But Mom never listened to logic when it came to David. I tried to ignore her comments at the party, but then David himself appeared at my elbow. "Having fun spending money you could be using to help your family," he muttered, just loud enough for people nearby to hear. "David, don't do this here," I whispered back. "Do what? Tell the truth? Tell everyone how my sister has $50,000 just sitting around while her brother's life falls apart." The conversations around us started dying down. People were turning to stare. "That money isn't just sitting around," I said, my voice getting louder than I intended. "It's for my wedding that I've been saving for since before you even knew what cryptocurrency was." "Oh, so now you're throwing my mistakes in my face." Michael appeared beside me, his hand on my arm. "Hey, maybe we should take this inside." But it was too late. Mom had heard the commotion and came storming over, her face red with anger and embarrassment. "Jessica Marie, you will not speak to your brother that way in front of our guests. I'm not the one who started this, Mom. You started this the moment you decided money was more important than family." That's when she did it, right there in front of everyone. Michael's parents, my coworkers, our neighbors. Mom drew back her hand and slapped me across the face. The sound echoed across the suddenly silent backyard. My cheeks stung, but the humiliation hurt worse. "Linda!" Dad's voice boomed from across the patio, but the damage was done. I looked around at all the shocked faces staring at me, then at Michael's horrified expression, then at David, who looked almost satisfied. "I'm done," I said quietly, and walked straight through the house and out the front door. Michael found me sitting in my car in the driveway, crying so hard I could barely breathe. He didn't say anything at first, just got in the passenger seat and handed me tissues from the glove compartment. "I can't believe she did that," I finally managed. "In front of everyone," Michael said, shaking his head. "Your own mother. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am being selfish." "Jessica, look at me." Michael turned in his seat. "You are not selfish for wanting to use your own money for your own wedding. That's literally what you saved it for." We sat there for maybe 20 minutes, watching people leave the party through my rearview mirror. Some of them kept glancing at my car, probably wondering if they should come over. Nobody did. When we finally went back to my apartment, I was emotionally drained. All I wanted was to crawl into bed and pretend this day never happened. But around 10 o'clock, there was a knock at my door. Dad was standing there, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Can I come in, sweetheart?" I let him in, and he sat heavily on my couch, the same spot where David had sat 2 weeks earlier. "Your mother sent me to apologize," he started, but I cut him off. "Did she send you, or did you come because you wanted to?" Dad was quiet for a long moment. "Both, I guess, but mostly because there are some things you need to know." That's when he told me everything. Turns out, this wasn't David's first time asking family for money. Over the past 3 years, he'd borrowed $8,000 from Dad's retirement fund, $5,000 from Mom's inheritance from Grandma, and even talked our cousin Pete out of $3,000. None of it had ever been paid back. "Your mother keeps believing he'll turn things around," Dad said, rubbing his forehead. "She refinanced the house last year to cover some of his debts. We're basically starting over with our mortgage at 62 years old." I felt sick. "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" Because your mother made me promise. She's so ashamed of how much money we've already lost to David's schemes. She thought if she could just get him one more chance with your money, he might finally succeed at something. But it's not her money to give away. I know that, you know that, but your mother, she sees David struggling and she can't stand it. She'd rather sacrifice everything than watch him fail. Dad stayed for another hour, telling me about David's pattern of big promises and bigger failures, about Mom's sleepless nights and constant worry, about the fights they'd been having behind closed doors. I should have stood up to her years ago, Dad said as he was leaving. I should have stood up for you tonight. I'm sorry, Jessica. After he left, I sat on my couch, staring at my bank account balance on my phone. $50,000. It seemed like such a huge number and such a small number at the same time. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I did what I do best. I made spreadsheets. By morning, I had a complete financial analysis of David's borrowing history, including dates, amounts, and promised repayment schedules that were never met. I also had a plan. I called in sick to work and spent the day making phone calls, first to Cousin Pete, then to Dad's financial advisor, then to a lawyer friend of Michael's. By the time I was done, I had a clear picture of just how bad things really were. That evening, I showed up at my parents' house with a folder full of documents and Michael by my side for moral support. Mom answered the door, looking embarrassed and defiant at the same time. Jessica, I hope you've come to apologize for the scene you caused yesterday. Actually, Mom, I came to talk about David's borrowing history. I watched her face change as I laid out everything I'd discovered. The spreadsheets, the timeline, the total amount, over $30,000 borrowed from family members over 3 years. How did you get all this information? David demanded when I confronted him directly. I asked the right questions to the right people, something nobody else in this family seems to do. That's when I made my offer. I'll give you $20,000, David, not a loan, a gift, but there are conditions. His eyes lit up, but I held up my hand. First, you have to acknowledge in writing that this is the last money you'll ever ask from any family member. Second, you have to pay back Dad's retirement money and the money you borrowed from Cousin Pete, not all at once, but on a payment plan we'll all agree to. Third, you have to get financial counseling. That's ridiculous, Mom started, but Dad interrupted her. No, Linda, it's fair. And Mom, I continued, you have to promise to stop pressuring family members to enable David's poor decisions. This pattern stops now. The room was quiet for a long time. Finally, David nodded. Okay, I agree. Mom looked like she wanted to argue, but Dad put his hand on her shoulder. We agree too, he said firmly. 6 months later, Michael and I had our wedding. It wasn't the $50,000 extravaganza I'd originally planned, but it was beautiful. David was there, looking healthy and actually holding down a steady job for the first time in years. Mom helped me get dressed and told me I looked perfect. I'm sorry about the engagement party, she said, as she fastened my necklace. I was wrong to slap you. I was wrong about a lot of things. I know, Mom, we're okay. And we were. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone isn't money, it's boundaries. David paid back every penny he owed Dad and Pete. He's still working on the financial counseling thing, but he hasn't asked anyone for money since. Mom has stopped making excuses for him, and Dad seems 10 years younger. As for me, I learned that standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish, it makes you strong.